my responsibility is to put as many tools in the toolbox as possible. And then you again, as I said, you move forward with those. There's going to be adversity in those, and there's certain things that obviously, when we're talking to our staff, you can't control. You can't control, some of the wins and losses. You can't control the weather. But what are the things that you can control? If you worry about those things, then the other things start happening with that.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We're a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. We got a special one today. It is number 24. Can you believe that, Jimmy? We're on the way to 50, I guess, eventually.
Almost halfway there, my friend.
Halfway there, yeah. Hey, how you been?
I'm good.
Yeah,
really good. Excited to have Doug here today. Anytime we have something with WT,
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation with Doug. And I got to ask you though, how you had a recent surgery?
Oh shoot, that's over.
What?
That's old news. Look at this.
Aren't you?
I've had no problem. I had no problem.
Okay, all right.
I've told everybody. I went to see Tyler Cooper the other day. It got released. I said I'd do this again before I'd have another root canal. That's how easy it was. So
he had what did you have done?
Had a meniscus tear. And then he pulled two big old rock chunks out of the back of my knee, and I didn't even know they were there. And he said that's where your pain was coming
from.
So
I saw Coop on the sidelines of the Bushland West Plains game, and I go, man, Jimmy said you did a great job, and he goes, well, he would have said that even if I did a bad job, you know what I mean? But he's a former Buff. Rick Cooper's son, Tyler, is an outstanding surgeon here in town. But anyway, played hoops for the.
He and his wife both.
Yeah, well,
Rick will tell you Emily's the best athlete in the whole family.
Well, as Doug walks in the event center, obviously you see her name up on the wall.
Emily was Lone Star Conference Player of the Year. This is Tyler's wife. They grew up. They were boyfriend and girlfriend in high school. So I think she was a year behind Tyler, and they both went to WT. Rick was coaching at WT at the time, and played for his dad all 4 years, and then Emily played. 4 years at WT, Lone Star Conference Player of the Year, and just one of the best families you'll ever meet. And then Tyler's sister, Corey, played volleyball at the University of Nebraska, won a national championship her freshman year. Yeah. Played with Jordan Larson and Sarah Pavin and that bunch back in the day.
Well, I've had the opportunity to meet Rick a couple times.
Yeah, great guy.
Great supporter.
One of my good friends, super
that's
guy.
Good. So, hey, let's officially introduce Doug. He is the Vice President of Athletics at West Texas A&M. An extended Grand Valley State background, and we're thrilled to have him here today. Officially came on the scene, Doug, like August 28th or that last week of August. Just in general, are you just a blowing and a going and just trying to land the plane the best you can?
All of it, right? So I was talking to somebody yesterday. Less boxes in the house today than there was the day before. So everybody's kind of getting settled in day by day. But I've been on the job for 5 weeks, and it feels like I just got here, right? And so the coaches are awesome. The community's been great, and just trying to take it all in and learn a lot from the community and obviously the institution. But we're moving forward. Everything that we're doing, we're moving forward, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. But we don't even see our ceiling right now, so we're excited.
That's awesome.
We were walking in, and I told him, I said, I haven't had a transition like this in almost 30 years. I can't imagine changing jobs.
My gosh, yeah. Well,
I just can't imagine, and moving from top of the country to
1,200 miles.
Yeah. As established, we're at Grand Valley State too. I mean, sometimes think, maybe I'm just speaking out on you, and I don't want to speak for you, but sometimes that's where you're going to end your career. It's such a great place. So
absolutely. I went to school there, played baseball there, coached. I was very fortunate to be able to be there for 22 years.
Yeah.
And I kind of tell people that, my career, I was growing at the same time the institution was growing. So I was just very blessed at the same time that, from a parallel standpoint, we were doing the same thing. A lot of folks in their career, if you want to move up, you want to do things, you have to move. I was just really blessed that I was able to stay there and grow with the institution until Dr. Wendler called.
Yep.
And then our world kind of changed. And we could talk about that, but great leader, and this is a great institution.
We will talk about that in just a second. We are remiss. This is podcast number 24, Jimmy. Our tradition now is who's your favorite 24 of all time?
Man, I was at a blank. I know we talked about this briefly that minute. I mean,
I
literally
can't steal it.
I was at a blank.
Okay.
Because I immediately I go to the Cowboys and I'm going, okay, I don't think of a 24.
Everson Walls.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't think that quick.
Okay.
I'm getting old, Lance. I can't
that's
think
all right.
that
That's all right.
fast.
Yeah.
But he came up with a couple of good ones.
Yeah. No. Well, mine's going to be Willie Mays,
Right.
the Say Hey kid growing up. I was kind of when I was younger, it was the end of his career, obviously, but all the stories about Willie Mays, and then I got to meet him once, and he was actually in a good mood that day. He's kind of famous for being a little persnickety, quite honestly. Okay, but it was a great experience for me, so I was glad to get that. Doug, who's your 24?
Yeah, so being a baseball guy, Ken Griffey Jr. That swing,
That was
right?
a great answer. That was a great answer.
That was the era that.
Were you
that
okay
was,
with the hat backwards? A lot of
because I mean that was cool. That's when I was growing up. When I was growing up, watching him, and then
that's a great
right now it's postseason, right? So my gritty Tigers, big win last night, and they got 6 guys there, 24 years, so 24 years old or younger in their starting lineup.
And one of the older guys, believe it or not, Jake Rogers, is a Canyon High grad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great guy.
Yep.
My claim to fame with Jake is we played slow pitch softball together. Older dude, young guy coming up, and he fell in love with my glove. It was like a brand new. It was a pretty slick glove at that time. Obviously not now, but he begged his dad to buy the glove from me. And his dad wouldn't do it. So I wish to this day.
Yeah, you could probably sell it now to him for a couple bucks.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, if you don't mind starting out, before we get going here, your background in baseball, where'd the passion? Obviously, you have passion for sport, or you would not be doing what you're doing. You have to have that. But baseball, where did that grab your heart?
Well, a little background. I grew up with 3 sisters, so there was 4 of us, and we played everything. And so I did basketball, baseball, football, bowling, swimming, Boy Scouts. I think it was a little bit just to get us out of the house, right? And you just fell in love with baseball. I think part of it is because of the competition, right? It's not really a team game, but it's individual. It's you versus the pitcher, or if you're the pitcher, it's you versus the hitter. And I just had a certain skill set, more Ozzie Smith.
Yeah, love it. It's my all-time
favorite. Than Ken Griffey Jr.
Backflip and all.
I couldn't do the backflip. My older sister could. She was in gymnastics, another sport, right? But I had the glove. Couldn't, from a hitting perspective, couldn't take that next step. But I just enjoyed competing. I think really from my dad. My dad gave me the confidence that this is something that I could do. I wasn't always the biggest and the strongest when I was growing up. How my birthday kind of fell. I was always the youngest guy on the older
tough.
Teams.
Yeah.
So you just learned how to scrap and do those type of things and be a team player. And I think as an administrator, that's part of my heart. My heart is being a team player and being support staff. And how do we help our coaches? How do we help our student athletes be successful? And that just goes back to playing and understanding the game. And my youngest son plays ball, and his mentality is a little bit more baseball than mine. Mine was maybe a little bit on that football side. I could be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more emotional. He's just even keel, which is great. That's exactly what you need in baseball. Sometimes
baseball and golf. Yep.
So sometimes I want to, and again, I played golf in high school too. Like I had the baseball swing, but
and the grip.
No, I had the golf grip, but it's just one of those things that baseball. There's something romantic about it, right? It's 9 innings, the pace of the game. You have to think through a process. There's strategy. I love strategy. I think that's part of from a business perspective. One of the things that I evaluate and go through. I'm always at that 30,000 foot view. I can get into the weeds. But I like to play chess. I like to, look at the strategy. And that's why I think baseball just,
Wow.
made sense. You got to think, 3 batters ahead. how am I going to pitch this guy because so-and-so is going to come up. There's only one out, and those type of things. So I think that's why,
Wow.
I enjoyed it.
So you rattled off a whole bunch of sports coming from the north, but you didn't say hockey.
Now, where did you grow
I
up,
was
though?
the MVP of the PHL, the Pond Hockey League. Okay, so we go down the
Pond
street.
hockey.
So I could skate. I could skate backwards the whole 9 yards.
Oh,
My
yeah.
dad played hockey, but I never played it competitively because that was basketball season.
Yep.
But roller hockey.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up north of Detroit,
Okay.
in a suburb called Sterling Heights. It was about 40 minutes north of downtown Detroit. So,
Oh, wow.
of course, we're Tigers fans. We're Lions fans. Lions. How about the Lions?
Yeah.
They haven't been
Played-
good in a long time. Barry Sanders was great, but
Yeah.
as a team,
They've got a
right-
good football coach.
right now, their offense is pretty good, and we enjoy
Play
enjoy
the
watching
Cowboys
them.
this week. So
They
it's-
do.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do.
So let me ask you this: from where you grew up, where's Eastern Michigan? And I'll tell you why.
So
I'm
Eastern
asking.
Michigan would be south. It would be next to Ann Arbor. So
Okay.
Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor are basically.
So I have a friend
one.
that used to be a professor at WT, has now been the president at Eastern Michigan
Okay.
for several years now, and so in fact this will be his last contract. He's going to
Okay.
retire after this one, but what's the name of it?
Ypsilanti.
Ypsilanti. That's it.
Ypsilanti,
Starts
yeah.
with a
So it's
Y.
basically Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti is one big,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
one big suburb.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
where Jim's at. Yeah, Jim Smith, good friend of
Okay.
mine.
You spoke of your family already. I'm glad you brought that up. How do you juggle that? You want to be a father who's there for your family. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's not easy with the time commitment for for a vice president
Yeah.
of athletics. If I call it athletic director, I
Oh
apologize.
no, yeah.
But I'll try to get that down.
Yeah.
But how do you juggle that, Doug?
Well, people call life in the balance. There's no such thing, right? There's no equal. It's not equal. When you get into athletics, and especially collegiate athletics, it's a lifestyle. And obviously my wife knew that when she married me. And the boys enjoy. I have two sons, 16 and 14. They enjoy coming to the games. They enjoy the competition. They'll ask a whole bunch of questions related to all the sports. Why did we do this? Why did we do that? Which I think keeps you humbled as a dad too. They come up with some good ideas as well when it comes to some of the marketing and that they're that younger age, so they keep us a little bit younger. We always talk about we market to 18 to 24-year-olds every year. The only difference is we get older.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Very true.
but that balance is it's family first. You have to take that mentality, and I've talked to the coaches about that as well. It is a privilege to work at WT. It's a privilege to be in collegiate athletics, and the opportunity for us to mold and mentor young folks from all over the world, really. And so that's an honor, but yet as you go through it, it's your life, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes coaches they lose that perspective. As I've told them too, the most valuable thing that we have is time. No one's ever told me any different. Some have more than others in their life, and so it's very precious in how we spend our time. And so, are we efficient with our practices? How are we communicating? That's really important. So that little by little, you can carve out time for things that are important. And obviously, family is really important to me, but it's also important to our department and our institution.
Sure.
So obviously your name was on the radar of Dr. Windler, president of West Texas. He calls you. Now, we want you to brag on yourself just for a second. You had other opportunities, as I
Sure.
understand. I don't want to, if I speak out wrong, just tell me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had other opportunities to take other jobs, and you did not. So take us into that process, if you don't mind. All
Yeah.
right, you get this call, and from afar, you knew West Texas, obviously.
Of course.
So what was your opinion of West Texas from afar?
Yeah, so to back up, I had been an administrator at Grand Valley for 22 years.
Yeah.
And been fortunate to be with Coach Brian Kelly, who's
That's
at
just what I was
LSU,
fixing to
and-
ask you if you were
and
there.
and
That's
Coach
crazy.
Chuck Martin and Mike Denbrock, who's the OC at Notre Dame, and all these guys, right? And so you have opportunities in your career when you do well, and Grand Valley has done well. We've done well in the external business and being very creative and those type of things and generating revenue. Well, opportunities are going to come your way. And again, I've been very fortunate that at my career at Grand Valley, I was able to grow. So I didn't have to maybe take a particular job somewhere that was going to allow me to grow. The job that I was at I was able to do that. And so I think, a little bit different is, timing's everything.
Yeah,
right.
sure.
And I have known about West Texas for 22 years. And we played them in football and, obviously track and field and those type of things. And so I think the reputation of WT is great tradition. As, I really started investigating, one of the things that, I looked at is, where would my skill set come in? What can I do for the institution? Becoming a vice president was extremely important to me because at this point in my career, I want to make an impact on an institution as well. Not just an athletic department, but an institution. And what can the athletic department do for an institution? And then you start investigating the community in that, and things started, aligning. And where I could come in with my skill set into a community that supports the institution understanding the value of athletics, and where we want to go as an institution. And so when Dr. Windler called and we started having those conversations, and to be honest, Dr. Terry, and he was very humble in the entire process, which again, when you talk about family and that really helps. Them not just trying to sell WT, but also kind of showing the vision and the picture. And then, it came down and had a visit, and then you get on campus. And I'll tell you what, WT is it's a wonderful place. It's an untold story. It won't be for long. That's my goal, right? My goal is to tell the rest of the world how great WT is, and we have to showcase that. We've had great accomplishments here as an institution, as an athletic department, and we need to create, I would call it, more impressions, right? And get out there and let folks know about it. We're in the recruiting business. Everything that we do, we're recruiting. We're recruiting donors. We're recruiting fans. We're recruiting, kids to grow up to go to WT. Obviously, we're recruiting student athletes, future coaches, future administrators. So how we operate has to be with that mentality. Hopefully, you can kind of understand and feel my passion for what we do.
Oh, yeah.
And we're always moving forward. And I just have that continuous improvement philosophy every day. I don't know how I'm going to get better, but I'm going to get better today.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and you and I've just barely had any time to visit, but on the phone we talked a little bit the other day. In another life, I worked at WT for 13 years. The last 7, I ran the alumni office. And I always told people everywhere I went that our athletic department is the number one window to the institution. Whether anybody else wants to admit that or not, it is. And Lance, we've talked about this on this podcast before. Lance used to work at the paper, and they told beautiful stories back in the day about our sports programs, and that's what everybody watches. The sportscast is at the end of the news, so you'll watch the rest of the newscast.
Right.
That's not by accident. And so my point being is, I was really thrilled when I heard they're gonna take this title from an athletic director to a VP position, because I see it from the inside of the institution. And that you've got a seat at the table with everybody else now, and they're going to start to see the value that athletics brings to the table, where I don't know that that's always been the case at our institution, and people need to understand that.
That's cool.
And I'm really grateful that that's something new. You're the first, and what an opportunity. And you're following a guy that's been there 18 years, but you got to come in and you got to do it your way. And I'll be the first to tell you that. And I've got a note in my desk drawer. I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time, and I left them 3 things. Someday they're going to knock me off the face of the earth, and I've got a note in there that tells the next guy, don't ever let them tell you that's how Jimmy did it. You do it your way. Number 2, run this place like you own it. And number 3, understand you don't own anything. And that's my advice to the next person.
I like it.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll carve our own path.
Sure.
And I think, part of being part of the senior staff is, when you're in a place of higher education, you'd be surprised how much education you need to do. And that goes with the communication. Just because somebody has a title doesn't mean that they're going to understand what you do within your department,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
vice versa. So when you're in that room and having conversations, you're also learning. But I've been blessed again over the last 22 years that we've been very collaborative in our approach. And so I know that at Grand Valley, the conversations that are happening around the athletic administration table probably isn't happening across the country. They're talking about things that are happening at the university, and so you can be more educated. That way, then you can educate the coaches, and maybe you come up with a concept or an idea that could help the institution. So the flow of communication is really important. And so being in that room, if not anything, right, one of the most important things is to listen.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk, but
and the
sometimes
opportunity
it's
to build a
listening.
relationship with deans and VPs.
Oh, yeah.
And have a seat at that table. And I know Michael was involved in some of that, but to formally move this position to a VP level impressed me, and probably not a lot of people, but it did me because I've been there and I've worked at that institution, and I know what that means to the athletic department, and I also know what the athletic department means to the university.
The facilities, Doug, if you don't mind, tell our viewers and listeners, you've visited a lot of campuses in the Division II world. So the facility
and Division I world.
And Division I world, of course. I give you credit there. And so tell us what the facilities are like there at WT.
They're unbelievable. They're state of the art. I just opened the Bain Center, which is right next to the 2 practice football fields, which is right next to the beautiful stadium that's been open, 5 seasons now. You look at the basketball arena, the box. What other institution, Division II, there's not many that has their own volleyball facility.
Yeah.
And it's well deserved, right? You're talking about
With the state-of-the-art floor.
Yeah, national championship level program. And so, but we're going to look at all those things, right? Those are things. What's the next step? You look at it like, hey, you got these great facilities. Okay, well, in the world of athletics, facilities get dated really quick. So you always have to plan ahead. Hey, what's the next thing? From a fan experience standpoint, but also, my goal is to have the best student athlete experience possible. And so you start looking at, okay, when our student athletes come here and we're recruiting them, what's their experience going to be for the next 4 or 5 years? So you're looking at locker rooms, you're looking at team rooms, you're looking at film areas. And I'm going to talk about the old school film, right? All the digital technology and technology in general, softwares, so that you can get all that data and get as many data points as possible and make good decisions. And again, moving the program forward. And so we'll look at all those, but it's really hard to beat the facilities at WT. And so that's one thing we talk about, hey, get them to campus.
Yeah.
If we can get recruits to campus, we're almost there, right? You're almost there on selling them our program. But they're unbelievable. The campus too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of growth on campus that's happening right
totally
now.
Changed.
I'm gonna switch directions here, but I want to ask a question. So coming from a completely different conference, pretty good distance from us, and I know it's early, but what do you see as the biggest difference in a Division II program across the board where you came from, and I'm talking about the other schools in your conference up there too, versus where we are right now? Because we're in a unique time right now. Look at our football program. We've got teams from the West Coast in our conference now. It's not, the Lone Star Conference is almost a joke as far as the title because of some of these teams that are in our conference now. And Division II is in a weird place. And I want to hear the biggest differences between those 2 conferences that you see, and then where do we go next?
Well, I think there's obviously 2 questions in one there. One, look at the conferences. The GLIAC and Lone Star. One of the things in the Midwest, obviously, is density, right? So larger cities, more schools.
Yeah.
If you're taking Grand Valley, you're 45 minutes north is Ferris State, really good Division II program. 90 minutes Michigan State, 45 minutes Western Michigan, hour and a half Central Michigan. So a lot of mid-major Division I's. Chicago 3 hours away, Detroit 3 hours away. So you're dealing with populations. Everybody's coming in there. All Division I's are coming into Chicago to recruit. So that would be one. It's just straight, density of schools and people compared to here, right? Travel is 6 hours on average, probably to go I know in the Midwest to go up to the Upper Peninsula, you talk about, it's 6.5 hours. Well, that's like a Tuesday for us. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. Division II, I think it's a great opportunity right now with everything that's happening in Division I, and obviously the House settlement just came out, yesterday. It looks like that's all going to be approved. Where does Division II go?
Yeah.
What's the next opportunity for Division II? For the Lone Star related to football, there's 2 schools that obviously are not in the state, Central Washington and Western Oregon. So you're going to make one long trip a year. I don't see that being a bad thing. I know people can, talk about that. I think it's an opportunity to take your brand to the West Coast and embracing one of those trips. You only have to take one of them a year.
Sure.
And all the other sports, you're back to what the true Lone Star is. And so I don't see that being a bad thing. They're kind of on an island because all the West Coast teams drop football. So I'm proud of those programs that they stuck with keeping a football program. The easy thing would be to cut drop their program.
Yeah.
And so, that's awesome. There's not as many teams that obviously play football when you start getting west of the Rockies in Division II.
Right.
And so, Division II, what has happened is a lot of these public schools have gone to Division I and they have backfilled with small privates. And so where it was about 60-40 about 20 years ago, it's like just over, 50-50 right now, 52-48, where the small private schools, there's more of them in Division II, which then when you go to the NCAA convention and you're voting on things, they're voting differently. We've always been competitors. I think here at WT, they're competitors, right? We want to win. We want great competition, not participation. And when you're a small private and you've got 900 students and 700 student athletes, you're looking at what's convenient, the lowest cost to keep your doors open.
Yeah.
So it's not always about the competition and what you want to do to move Division II forward. So I think a lot to come. I mean, there's a lot of unrest right now in Division I. It'll be interesting to see how that all settles over the next 2 years and how Division II can make their own mark. Division II, I think in general, if I were to make a stereotype, they would always let Division I make the decisions, and then it would affect Division II. I think it's an opportunity in Division II making decisions, right? Now, will they do that as a whole group? I don't know, but again, it is an opportunity. You can sit back and let everything settle, and then this is what we have. Or you can start making decisions and, taking control of your own division.
I think there's one, in my opinion, one consistency that you hear when you hear folks talk about Division II across the country is they refer to things as the student athlete versus in Division I, that's not a common trait that you hear. And there's a big difference in a student athlete and an athlete. And just with all the changes with NIL and all the stuff that's out there now, the student athlete, in my opinion, is still the focus at the Division II level because the goal is have a good program, but get them an education too. And that's what they're coming for in the beginning. And so,
and that's what it should be.
Sure. That's where the focus has always been.
Yeah.
And Division II takes a little bit of a hit from that sometimes. And people forget why are we sending people to university to begin with?
I had Gary Barnett on my radio show. He's the former Colorado football coach, and he was my high school coach. That's the reason I got him on my show. Anyway, he predicted, Doug, in 3 years that there will be that super conference in Division I football, 40 schools. He said Colorado's outside looking in. It's all about the money. Texas Tech might be right on that border, but he thinks that's going to happen and fast. My question for you, though, was this. What a challenge for Division II because with the portal specifically, I was going to ask you, how can you relate to your coaches or how do you react to that? Let's say you get a Doug Lipinski who, does develop into potential, the word potential there, but good athlete and then really blossoms. And those Division I programs come and pick off all the Division II players. They have a really, really rough chore now. They develop that player, and I don't blame the kid. I don't blame the athlete for saying, hey, I want to try North Texas or I want to try Tech. You know what I mean? I've worked hard.
No,
How do you handle that, man, as their leader?
Well, I think there's two things. When you're looking at the Power Four, it becomes a perception thing, right? Because they control TV.
Yeah,
So
TV, yeah.
you're watching them, and everyone thinks that's what collegiate athletics is about, and it's not, right? And they devalue the education part of being a student athlete. Related to the portal, it goes back to creating the best student athlete experience possible. Because if the student athlete can come here and they can develop, and they're having a good experience, that next step has to be a little bit more of a leap, right? And so you don't want to lose folks to a mid-major Division I, because it's really not that big of a step, right?
No.
When you start looking at competition and that, or it shouldn't be. And so that's the gap that we're going to close and continue to close. If University of Texas calls, that's a little bit different
story.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
And now it's you've created that opportunity for that student athlete. But if you concentrate on creating the best student athlete experience for them, then how you travel, nutrition, your support system with academics and training and strength and conditioning, all those type of things. An opportunity may arise at a quote unquote mid-major, and you're gonna look at it like, am I gonna start all over? I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I'm a starter. I go there. Let's say I'm a wide receiver, now all of a sudden I get a little nagging injury in a fall camp. These guys really don't know me.
Yeah.
I haven't really earned anything. So now I'm the eighth wide receiver, where right now I was the 1 or 2 wide receiver, and my coaches know me. They've invested in me. So that becomes a risk management issue for the student athlete. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and you have to tell that story. I think that's part of it. People talk about re-recruiting. That's what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
But you don't want to become a farm system. And I think part of that is we have great facilities. We have great coaches. We're putting together support services for our student athletes, and then creating those opportunities for our student athletes. When you talk about the best student athlete experience, those are the things that are going to matter. It's about the relationships.
I told Coach Harry this when she came on our podcast a few weeks ago, and you're going to see this firsthand as time goes on. You're probably already starting to see it because in your position, we're very relational people around here, and Canyon has a little bit of a retirement community in it, and we have a lot of retirees that invest a tremendous amount of time in preparing food, meals, support systems for these athletes, just out of the goodness of their heart, not because they want anything in return. And you go to these events, and I'll use basketball as an example, that Buffalo room is filled with food because Pam and them have sent out the meal train for all of us to fill out, what are we bringing today? and those kids are taken care of. And then they get to know those folks, and those folks get to know them. And it builds that community side of things in Canyon and at West Texas that not all universities and colleges have the advantage of having. And that's another thing that you can sell around here is they're going to be surrounded by good people of community when they come here. And it's fun to watch our folks do what they do because they do a great job. And not only that, but some of them are also tutors and work directly with students in the classroom setting. And so it's a win-win on that deal for the student athlete when they get those type folks involved too.
It is. I mean, when you have that level of support within the community, that allows coaches and programs to take that next step, in whatever that may be, right? And there's a number of things that you look at, but knowing and feeling that support really allows you to do things that at other institutions, as you mentioned, they just don't have.
Yep.
So again, we're extremely lucky to have that support.
And I don't mean this. We're Josh Lynn fans, but right now that program is, it's probably not on the level of a lot of the other program. Let's be real. Yep. Football the last few years. Do you think it's critical to have a football program, since it's kind of the bell cow, fair or not, of the attendance, everything that just the vibe that goes around it? Is that important to have that program really strong year in and year out? I realize there's going to be a year or two where you don't win. It's okay, but is that really critical to get the football program very strong?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I think you kind of almost answered your own question.
On
that one. In my,
I was trying to be nice.
In my presser, I made the statement we're going to win in football. We have to win in football, and there's a process to get that done. with that said, it's been 20 years. Again, when you really evaluate the tradition of WT, it's been 20 plus years or almost 20 years that we haven't lost 3 games in a season. So you're talking about 8-3, maybe a 9-3 if you made the playoffs, but you lost the first round. 3 losses, you may not get into the playoffs. 2 losses, you might not get into the playoffs. And so, when we start looking at that, I'm evaluating from a national championship perspective. That's the only thing I know. Right or wrong, that's how I'm evaluating. Can we win a national championship? What is it going to take when you look at, support? What is it going to take related to, the type of student athletes, again, the type of services? Are we structured the right way? My responsibility is to put as many tools in the toolbox as possible. And then you again, as I said, you move forward with those. There's going to be adversity in those. And there's certain things that obviously, when we're talking to our staff, you can't control. You can't control, some of the wins and losses. You can't control the weather. But what are the things that you can control? If you worry about those things, then the other things start happening with that. And so we're not where we want to be. I think, Coach Lynn would tell you that.
Oh, yeah. He said that here.
Right. And so, those are the things. And I had made the comment in my presser that I travel with football. I think people misunderstood that. I'm not like on the bus with them. I go to the games, And so, one of the things that is my responsibility and that's for all of our 16 sports is an evaluation.
Yeah.
And sometimes non-competitors don't like that word. Competitors love that word, and that we're evaluating the program every day and how we can get better, how we're running practice. Is our practice facilities where they need to be? Do we have enough training staff, right? How many coolers do we have out there? Is enough garbage cans? Like, we're evaluating everything because that's what we owe our student athletes. And that's what we have to. That's how we have to see things. And then we set out the vision. And so yes, it's extremely important to us to have a successful football program. I think it's difficult for programs that don't have football. I always wonder, what do you do for homecoming? It's homecoming week. You have it around soccer, which nothing against soccer, but just the draw and the number of students and. There's so much that you do around a football game. I mean, you go down 26th Street and all the smokers and like that tailgate scene's different, and different in a good way. It's something that you can celebrate and something as a student you're going to remember when you become an alum. And that's where we play, and it's around football. And so we'll continue to work on getting better. And it's a goal of ours for sure.
Yeah.
I was looking at numbers last night, and me, I'm a numbers guy. And I went to school at WT in the fall of 80. And from 1980 to 2005, when Coach Carthel got there, 500 at best, if not even maybe a little below that through all those years. 7 years, Coach Carthel win 80% of our games. And since that time, we're just barely above 500 in football. And I'm just talking football. Yeah. So it's not like this is something that's new. It's hard. It's real hard. And when you take all the factors in today's world about recruiting student athletes, getting them here, we don't live in Siberia that a lot of them pawn off on the other recruits downstate. They try to tell me, you don't want to go there because you live in 6 inches of snow all the time. And so those are things that we fight. But we have everything in our favor if, like you said a while ago, if we get that kid to campus. Because we get them here, I think we got a shot. I think we got a real shot. And so it all comes down to my question was, what do you see in your first steps to have to do? And you're talking about evaluating things. I think that's what you have to do. And until you can smell it, feel it, touch it, and taste it, you don't know. And so it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and again, related to football, recruiting's your lifeline.
Sure.
And we have a lot of positives. And so we have to stack those, and we have to communicate that, and we have to be where the student athletes are. And so you can kind of read between the tea leaves. Social media is going to be a big deal for us. And whatever you want to say about Dion and what they're doing to Colorado, the reason why they're getting a lot of hype is because of that, right? And and he's a celebrity, and he's going through that. And I don't know, how good the football is. But
fair enough.
The idea that he's in the room and he's having conversations with a certain level of recruit right now that maybe in the past they weren't. Now, we're not going to take that page from the playbook, but we're going to get better in those things. And we have to be able to create those opportunities for our coaches. And again, that's going to be looking at recruiting. That's going to be looking at the recruiting budget. How are we getting the kids to campus?
Yeah.
And it's a great institution. And again, as you mentioned, once you get into campus and you see it and you see the facilities, and those are all the things that you're going through. The ceiling, as I've said before with our coaches, and that I'm not sure in a lot of our sports we can even see it right now. We may think, oh, hey, we've done good, which, by the way, winning is very difficult. Okay, winning games is very difficult. Winning championships is even harder. Now you want to be consistent at it, and when you get at the top, of the summit, then there's more people clawing at you.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want to get their butts kicked, so they're going to get better.
Yeah, for sure.
And so again, that's where the evaluation, and that's where you're always trying to take that next step. And so it doesn't matter if you win a national championship, how you can get better the following year, right? You're not gonna surprise anybody. And related to football, I think that's part of it. And those are conversations and how you can stack the good. I imagine that there's negative recruiting out there that happens against us and whatever. We're not gonna play that game. But for us, there's more positives than quote unquote negatives.
By far.
The bucket is really full. And we need to express that to folks. And so, we'll figure out where we need to expand our recruiting base. And do we have all the resources necessary to be successful? And I would say the 30,000-foot view is yes. When you start getting the weeds, yeah, there's going to be things that we're going to have to get better at.
Yeah, that's fair. That's more than fair. By the way, Coach Barnett, I asked him about Dion, and he said, when's the last time everybody's been talking about Colorado football?
Yep.
That's
Right.
the bottom
Yep.
line. That's what he said, because I think Dion said, we're getting the Louis Vuittons in here and we're getting all the Samsonites out of here. You know what I mean? And I asked him what he thought about that. And he goes, hey, they're talking. He goes, I would have never said it like that, but I was thinking that. I've watched this team the last 5 years. So if you don't mind, Jimmy, you got much more?
No, go ahead.
No. Doug, I just obviously when you met with Dr. Windler, you had a great vision, and you talk about that 30,000 thing or the elevation thing. But what is your vision? I know that's a wide open question, but in general, what is your vision for WT as you have the reins here?
Yeah, so I think simply is to be elite. And we'll talk about championship excellence and everything that we do. And championship excellence is the next step of excellence. And that's the level of detail. So if you want to be consistent at something, you have to understand the detail. And so, the vision is for us to be elite in all 16 programs, to be a national known brand. And, as I've talked to our student athletes, that we're going to be the hardest working brand in the country. And we could currently be right now, but nobody knows it. And we need everybody to know about us. And so, we're going to continue to work hard. I think we've got great student athletes. We've got about 434 student athletes, 16 programs. We have some of the best coaches in the country, unbelievable facilities, unbelievable community support. And now we got to take it to the next level, right? And every sport is going to be a little bit different, right? It could be consistently winning the conference. It could be how we run the program. There may be certain things in a particular program that we just need to get better at. But it's always going to be the next thing. And I think ultimately, if you look back and say, okay, well, yeah, people talked about WT as an elite program, then we've been successful.
Yep. I like that. I got to ask you, was it the slider? Was it the curve? What held you back hitting wise?
Yeah, probably the off speed.
Okay,
right. If I like any good hitter, if you knew the fastball was coming, you could handle it. But yeah, probably a little bit of the off speed. But I will say that I found a way, right, and I think that's again the mentality that we'll take. I found a way to play almost 170 games.
That's awesome.
And start and bunt and do those type of things. Get hit by pitches. Right, crowd that plate. I would do anything to get on base. I had a little bit of speed. I don't have that same speed anymore. But it's those type of things. You find a way in the game to be successful. And I think you take that and you parlay that into being an administrator. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, from a lifelong Buff, welcome to Canyon, welcome to WT. Whatever we can do to help you, please let us know. We're there. I mean,
I appreciate that.
we're knee deep in this deal, and I have been for a long time. And it gave me 2 degrees. It's where I met my wife. It's 2 of my daughters got their degrees there, so we bleed hard maroon, and I've got a whole cadre of friends that do the same. And people support our institution, and I think as a university, we've done a better job branding ourselves in recent years. And if we can take that athletic department and do the same.
I like that vision you have on that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, it's a special place.
Getting out to the world, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're right, because growing up in Colorado, I mean, so when I go back, there's a lot of Division II schools there now in the RMAC. So, but trust me, they know WT. They do at least. So, hey, I do a Furious 4. It's not furious at all. Are you ready, Doug, to end this thing?
All right.
Okay, big dogs or little dogs?
If I had to have a dog.
So no dogs.
No dogs, no cats.
Oh, okay. I got a little guy named Teddy Ballgame. If you ever met him, you would fall in love with him. I'm just telling you. Phone calls or text messages?
Phone calls. So I can text with the best of them. But again, you talk about relationship. I want to be as efficient as possible. A lot of times, in a text, you can't hear tone.
Yeah, at all.
So
Preach to me, brother.
a 90-second phone call and I'm done. You know exactly what we're trying to do. Then having to go back and forth for 15 minutes on text, and then you end up having to pick up the phone anyways.
Yep.
I ask that question to a lot of high school kids. We do a high school show, and you'd be surprised. They're starting to twist back to the phone calls. They really respect that now.
Yep.
So okay, the world. You got the 911. The world ends tomorrow. Okay. What meal does Doug have to have tonight? Well, is it you cooking it? Is your wife cooking it? Is you guys going out to someplace? What is the meal you have to have?
So like the death row meal.
That's a better phrase for it. Yeah,
it would be.
Now, do they actually get whatever they want though? If they want,
that's what they say. I'm not
Mackie
sure.
D's, whatever.
I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah, go ahead.
It would be my mom's pepper steak.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Really?
So, it's
Shout
just
out to
something.
Mom.
And my wife does it really well. So she got the recipe a number of years ago, and that's just something.
What's the trick? Can you let us in?
I don't know what the trick is. I just eat it. Okay.
I can't remember what the exact dish, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. Kim could tell me, but I remember my father-in-law telling me that when they first got married, I think it was mac and cheese or something, and he said, "Well, this doesn't taste like my mom's. My mother-in-law never made it again." That's wrong answer.
Wrong answer.
No,
Yeah,
my wife does.
That was a great answer.
Yeah,
That
she
was your
does.
wife.
But I will tell you that the Lipinski household, typically on a Friday night, if you
Okay.
came to our house, you're going to have some sort of pizza. All right, it's just
part of it. Huh?
Yep. So we've been, trying to find pizza places down here. When our
You a thin crust guy? You a big crust? Well, I mean,
Detroit
area.
style,
Oh, man,
style
yeah.
Jets,
Yeah.
or Buddies,
Yeah.
is famous for it. But
For sure.
we like pizza.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. We'll try different. We'll try different.
Give him
places.
a go-to.
So
Well, I'm a thin crust guy.
Okay.
I love 575, but I'm a white pie guy.
Okay. All right.
They've got a Charlie Daniels that is a white pie, and it's my
575.
Yeah.
575.
If you haven't been, you need to go get. You need to go.
Great guy there too as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
Brian
Notre
Kelly.
Dame guy.
Yeah.
Brian is. Yeah. So,
Yep.
and lastly, Doug, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. All right.
Okay.
How good are you from 1 to 10 at keeping a secret?
in my level of business,
You better be
probably
a 10.
like a 9.5.
I like it. I
Good
like
answer.
it. I like it. I like it. The good stuff there. So, Doug, thank you so much for joining us
absolutely.
today
Thank
on
you.
the Fieldhouse Podcast. Jimmy, great
Yep.
stuff as always. Really, we've been trying to get Doug in here. We're so thankful. He's a busy, busy man. Hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did. And just remember, this is a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. And, hey, we'll see you soon for number 25. You better be thinking of that number, all right?
Got it.
All right. Hey, see you later.